me, Fred Sanford.
Where are you going?
Into your past.
Perhaps another time.
Come with me.
I'll do the driving.
No cars, Fred Sanford. We'll travel on the clouds above the stars in the sky.
I ain't smoking on that stuff.
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study. I'll never get into Stanford.
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I'm going to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what are we talking about this week?
Well, this week we're going to see how sitcoms, mostly sitcoms from the kind of 70s, 80s, 90s range there, how they took on A Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol, the Charles Dickens classic from 18-dickety whenever. Yeah, there are a lot of versions of A Christmas Carol all around us, right? Yes. Everything from movies to just little, comic strips and everything in between. The Christmas Carol is not only known by everyone, it is public domain, being over That's right.
150 years old.
That's right. It's nearly 200 years old, so everybody can do it in whatever way they want to.
Yeah. So what is your history with A Christmas Carol, and is there a particular, instantiation of this story that has any kind of significance to you?
So probably Mickey's Christmas Carol. Like, I definitely remember, or is it Mickey's Very Merry Christmas?
No, it's called Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Mickey's Christmas Carol. I remember watching that when I was little. That was one of those ones that was on a lot.
Yeah.
And then there was another one that I can't place, that I don't remember, that was on when we were kids. Mm-hmm. It was not live, but like live action, like, real people. And that one, I remember it being kind of spooky.
Yeah.
But I don't remember anything more than there was like, they did some like green effects around the chains of Jacob Marley. Okay. And that is all I remember of that. I remember that I was young and I was scared and there were green effects around the chains. And then, of course, Scrooged, the Bill Murray movie.
Yeah. Are you a fan?
Yes, I am. I know a lot of people don't like it, but Carol Kane is the fucking champ. I love her so much.
It's a little polarizing, and you don't know this, but this morning while you were striking your set for your latest community theater production, I rewatched Scrooge to kind of get into the spirit. That was one we age-wise sort of come in a little bit after Scrooged and a little bit before A Muppet Christmas Carol, I think, which are two big ones for a lot of people.
What year was Scrooge?
Scrooged was 1988, so it's certainly in our lifetime. I remember going to the mall and seeing the posters for Scrooged. Right. I remember that being a big deal. The guy from Ghostbusters is in this huge movie that's sort of like a dark, funny version of A Christmas Carol, and always being interested in it. But at that time, my parents weren't taking me at 8 or 9 years old
to see R-rated movies.
Yeah.
That was one I definitely saw on one of those like free preview weeks of HBO at some point in time. And then we ended up recording it off of HBO. So we had it and watched it a bunch.
Yeah. Scrooged for me is, if nothing else, it's such a product of its time. It's all about the yuppieism and the like TV violence gone awry. So like when you first start it, the very first scene is Santa Claus under siege and he takes out a machine gun and it's like Santa Claus and the elves having a machine gun battle with Lee Majors, and then they pull back and reveal that's one of the TV shows that Bill Murray's character is working on. So much like a lot of the shows that we're going to talk about, Scrooged is about somebody putting on a production of A Christmas Carol.
Like a corporate,
who
producer
then
guy.
undergoes his own Scrooge-esque journey. So yeah, for me, I never loved Scrooged. I definitely don't like the ending where Bill Murray gets everybody in the movie theater to sing along with the song. I always find that like really
I love stuff
cringy.
like that. Totally hokey.
But yeah, I definitely recognize that it's a phenomenon. The one that's most near and dear to me, and I don't know if it's the one that you're talking about, the other one, is the George C. Scott version from the early 80s.
Yeah,
that
it
was
might
made
be.
for British movie theaters, but it was a made-for-TV thing in the United States, and it's a very straight-faced version of it.
Right.
And as a kid, I loved it because of the parts that were scary.
Yeah.
When Scrooge is coming home from his office, and he hasn't been visited by Marley yet. He sees like the funeral carriage, holding the body, and then just all the different spooky things that happen, and the representation of Marley himself is really, really freaky.
Oh, I
in
wonder
that
if
version.
this is the one.
But yeah, that to me was always one of my favorites. And The Christmas Carol in general, I think, was a story I always liked because it's time travel. It's like non-science fiction time travel. It's Back to the Future before Back to the Future. The idea that it's going to be about this guy being able to journey back and watch himself as a child, watch his parents, and then see the other things that are going on around him. Like, I always thought that was a really cool premise for a story. It's a Christmas thing where there's no Santa Claus,
right.
that it's all just about people. And it's one of the rare stories that pulls off the it was just a dream thing in a way that's really organic, that it doesn't feel like a cop-out. It actually makes sense that this whole thing is like this wild hallucination that this guy has as he's contemplating what his character is and what his legacy will be, and like starting to view himself from outside of himself. It's just like a really, really sort of cleverly conceived story. I see it as somebody who is like you're grappling with selfishness,
right,
and like
a
actually thinking of
internal struggles.
Yeah, thinking of yourself from other people's point of view, and thinking about how you will be regarded when you're gone, and all of that, which is, from a character that starts off having no concept of anything except his own benefit. It's a very, if you were going to teach a 5th grade class what a character arc was, this is like such a perfect encapsulation of that. And so I think that's part of the reason why you have time and time again, it just is stupefying the number of sitcoms and other pop culture things that do this. It's just so easy to slot in any milieu into this Christmas Carol story.
Yeah. Well, and you made mention at some point that something I'd never even considered, how similar the It's a Wonderful Life story is to A Christmas Carol. Mm-hmm. It's not the visited by 3 ghosts, but it is like the guardian angel because I'm contemplating ending my life because I'm so dissatisfied. So it's like the flip side. It's like the Bob Cratchit, version of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm so unhappy, I'm going to kill myself. And an angel is like, no, wait, the world needs you. Whereas like the Scrooge story is, no, you're right. You should, you're awful. So either fix yourself or die.
Yeah, no, but it is the same thing. It's let's go and be invisible and watch things unfold and get a perspective outside of what we see as ourselves. And yeah, there's a ton that also do the It's a Wonderful Life thing. We considered having the trope of like 2 and 2 and doing both, but there's
so many of each one.
The sheer magnitude of Christmas Carol spoofs it's just so overwhelming that we thought it would be fun to just do 4 of those and see how they overlap. So what's our lineup? What did we watch?
We are going to watch The Odd Couple, Season 1, Episode 12, Scrooge Gets an Oscar, Sanford and Son, Season 5, Episode 12, Ebenezer, Sandford, Mr. Belvedere, Season 6, Episode 11, A Happy Guy's Christmas, and Golden Palace, Season 1, Episode 12, It's Beginning to Look a Lot Less Like Christmas.
Yeah, so starting with The Odd Couple, we have talked about The Odd Couple, the sitcom, but it's the new kind of bad one with Thomas Lennon and Matthew Perry. No offense to those guys. This is our first time covering the OG Odd Couple, which is, of course, itself not really OG. The original sitcom version, inspired by the movie based upon the play by Mr. Neil Simon.
Who actually helped write, I guess, maybe one or two of the episodes. He's credited as a writer. And I was wondering if that was just because this story seems it's repurposed from the fight where Felix gets kicked out in the movie or in the play.
I was wondering, does this happen in every episode, or is this particular one borrowing from the movie more than the others?
Yeah, or the play.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. I, for one, have never seen The Odd Couple performed on stage, but the movie with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau is one of my favorite comedies of all time. I've seen it a billion times and counting. The scene with the Cuckoo Pigeon sisters and Jack Lemmon gradually turning that, kooky, giggly energy into this, crying, hysterical mess. And then Oscar walks out and goes, "Who's ready for laughs?" And they're all crying. It is truly just, I could watch it again and again. Absolutely, one of my all-time favorites. Like I said, have never really seen the sitcom and was never really tempted to, mostly because, obviously the whole thing was wrapped up before we were ever really aware of it. And I just, nothing.
Yeah, this is 1970.
Yeah, nothing against Klugman and Tony Randall, but just Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau are both so legendary and irreplaceable to me that I think I never wanted to see these TV versions. So I never really tried out the sitcom.
So I saw the sitcom first. I had seen, and I guess it was on reruns or something. And so I watched some of those. I had seen some of those. So Jack Klugman was my first, Oscar. Yeah. And then in high school, I was cast as Gwendolyn Pigeon. And so I watched the movie because I wanted to see, obviously, the scene that I would be doing.
Yes.
And loved, the movie is hilarious. The play is hilarious. That scene with we've talked about it on the podcast before, with the spaghetti and they're fighting and Oscar throws the plate of spaghetti against the wall and Felix is like, I'm not cleaning that up. I'm just, you're just going to let it sit there and run down the wall and I'm cleaning this up. It's like
That's not spaghetti, it's linguine. That's exactly the kind of thing that you would say.
That huge fight scene, I've watched amateurs do it and literally fall on the floor laughing. It is so well written that when you get people like Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, who are just comedy geniuses, right? And you've got material like this, could watch over and over and over and over again. So it was fun for me, though, to go back because I haven't watched the sitcom in years and years and years, probably since high school, since it was just something, or middle school when it was just on in reruns. And so this was fun. I enjoyed this. I like them as, Felix and Oscar. You can see how they very much were trying to capture the energy the look of both Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon in these people.
The whole mise en scène, right? I feel like it's been a handful of episodes since I've said that phrase. This show started in 1970, I think. The movie is 1968, so this is fresh on the heels. Yeah. So it feels like, probably isn't the case, but it feels like they took same camera crew, same location, same everybody, and kept it going. And I'm sure that's not all exactly the case, but
it looks, even the cop, the guy who plays the cop, his name's Al something. He was Arnold from Happy Days.
That's a very funny change, though.
Because he kind of looks like the guy, right?
He's the opposite. The guy who plays Murray, this is a tangled web.
Right.
The guy who plays Murray
is a little bit more tall. He's
a tall, gangly guy. But listen to this. That guy who plays Murray in the movie of The Odd Couple, we have discussed him on the sitcom study because he played the burglar in a Happy Days episode. He broke into Richie Cunningham's house.
Because it's Gary Marshall.
Yes, exactly. They replaced that tall, skinny guy with Al
right.
from Happy Days, the schlubby restaurateur that we all know and love, which is fine, don't get me wrong, but he's got a completely different look.
You're right. That's right.
There's the other friend who's like the little nerdy guy with glasses. That's very memorable from the movie.
Yes.
They replace him with a similar guy. And then the other two friends.
And he's got a great little scene in this episode.
Yeah. And then the other two friends are just kind of like, I don't remember them as well from the movie, but I feel like they do a pretty good job of recasting everybody. But yeah, the music, everything, like it's got the same exact feel. This episode starts with a poker game, which is, of course,
just like the movie
show
starts,
and the movie. So I just started wondering, like, do they all start with a poker game or just this one?
Well, I remember poker, like they generally have a poker game in every episode.
Yeah, I guess they play every week.
Or some type of like, maybe they're getting ready for the poker game or, you know what I mean? But they do have like or the poker game is wrapping up and they're standing by the door and saying goodbye kind of a thing. Like, yes, there is a moment in every episode or most every episode, I think, where that is the case.
Well, this is no exception. They're having a poker game, much like in the movie. Alimony is hanging over Oscar, right?
Yes, he's very upset. He doesn't like Christmas because he and Blanche got married on Christmas and divorced on Christmas.
Yeah, and I guess his she was going to get remarried, but that fizzled out, so he's stuck paying alimony still. So he's just kind of a grouch, no pun intended with the Oscar thing. Felix, meanwhile, is getting ready to put on a play of A Christmas Carol.
Right.
So let's start tracking this trope because this is going to happen again and again. This notion, this is not something that I really grew up with.
That they're like the local production of A Christmas Carol.
Yes, this idea of a Christmas pageant or a Christmas play. You got that in the Charlie Brown thing. Mm-hmm. He has to direct a play. This was never a thing for me in real life, that there's a play, like a local play that is put on by some organization or something.
Yeah, I feel like there was always one at church. And so like, I mean, my family, we kind of stopped going to church around when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. And then at school, we always had like a concert, like a winter concert. And, you know, we came up in the time where it was like, oh, let's not just have Christmas songs in the winter concert. We need to, you know, make sure we're being more inclusive. And so there, you know, we always had one Hanukkah song, and we usually had the Kwanzaa song, Let There Be Peace on Earth, that one song that we did every year, so we could say that we were being, you know, multicultural and having a Kwanzaa song. So I think there was that was kind of my experience with that. But a lot of our shows, there is this sort of crossover where we're going to have even auditions. Like somebody is directing A Christmas Carol for the local town production, and then that leads to someone else kind of being a grump about it. Yeah. And then, so we have the auditions for the real life Christmas Carol, and then we have the actual like thing happen to one of the characters separate from the play, which is hilarious.
Most of these episodes follow this formula of somebody is directing A Christmas Carol, and they just have this notion that some other character in the show has to be Scrooge. Right? We're going to get that in Belvedere, and we've got that here with Felix going Oscar. And for anyone who doesn't know, Felix is the fastidious, uptight, nerdy guy. He's Jack Lemmon in the movie. He's Tony Randall in the show. And Oscar, of course, is the messy, more devil-may-care character played by Walter Matthau.
Which I kind of found really interesting in this, that, you know, Oscar is all upset about his divorce again, and Felix, who in the play and the movie is the one who is just recently divorced and is all beside himself about it. Felix says to Oscar at some point, you have to do what I did and just get over it. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, that's a turnabout, isn't it?
Yeah. In general, I feel like you could have gone either way with transposing this Christmas Carol thing on these characters. Like you could have just as easily said Oscar is the wacky one who gets really into it, and Felix is the one who's kind of a grump about Christmas, and that might even make more sense.
Well, because it would be like sad sack. But I do kind of like this idea. So Felix has been tapped to direct the local production, and he and everybody else in the poker game is just convinced that their Scrooge has to be Oscar. And Oscar is like, no, I hate Christmas. Why would I do anything Christmassy?
Yeah. Which I have to say, I don't agree with their instincts. You can't, if people, I don't know, it's just the idea that that guy's kind of an asshole in real life.
Yeah,
so
because
he's
grouchy about Christmas in real life, he'd be great to play Scrooge in A Christmas Carol.
That's
Disagree.
Just not really how acting works.
Right.
If people aren't good at cooperating and doing things with other people,
please don't put them in a play.
Yeah, you don't want them as your leading man.
Well, so we get the first of our audition scenes then, and because Oscar has said no, everyone else now gets to try out.
Right. This is basically
for Scrooge.
Only the friends around our poker table are the options. Felix doesn't know any other people to play any of the characters.
And so each of them gets a turn and each of them fails miserably. The one that I thought was pretty notable was the squirrely little friend that you were talking about that always is well, I have to be home by 11. Yeah. I told Marge or whatever her name is, I have to be home by 11. That one, Felix tries to go full director with him, and he gets up close in his face and he's like, you are Scrooge. You hate Christmas and everything about it. You love money and you want all of these people to just go away. And so the guy stands up and he's like, I hate Christmas and all of you. And he goes full axe murderer.
Yeah, total psycho. And then, Felix goes, okay, well, if we want to do Christmas Carol as a, psychotic man, then that's the way we'll go.
Next year, when we go axe murderer, you'll get the part.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Felix himself, he says, well, I couldn't possibly play the part because I'm too busy, but I'll show you what it would be like. And then he goes and does a reading that's kind of like Derek Jacobi in our Frasier episode.
Yes, it's so bad.
Sort of upon the morrow, and henceforth from the fortnight. He's not good either. So they don't have any good options. And then we cut to Oscar, and he's saying to himself, he goes, they're a bunch of bleeding hearts. That's what they are. Just because someone's realistic, they call him Scrooge.
That's right.
So he's doing the thing of he's kind of feeling guilty, and he's sort of wrestling with his, what's their problem anyway?
And he's kicked Felix out again, right?
Yes. Why did he even do that? Was it this Christmas thing?
He was
so unmotivated.
It was so, I know. And that's why I think it was all amped up. So, and all of these Christmas episodes have this thing of we're trying really hard to get to have enough time for all three ghosts. So we're going to sort of gloss really quickly over the reasoning for why this guy's a Scrooge in the first place.
Right. Which was totally an unforced error in this case, because him getting kicked out of the apartment has nothing to do with anything. Just make it that Oscar doesn't want to do the play. It's this weird added wrinkle that, as you're saying, for a episode that is way too overstuffed with story to begin with, I think you don't need this.
No, and I think truthfully, it was just they're doing the thing of trying to pull pieces from the beloved play and movie, and that was one of them. And so, we get Oscar by himself in the apartment at nighttime, sleeping. And so that we could only do that if Felix was not there, and the apartment's a mess again. And then it gives us a moment though where, the apartment is a mess again, but then when he goes to sleep and wakes up in the dream with the ghost of, Christmas past or whatever, or Marley, I guess it's Felix that's Marley first, the apartment is clean again. So in his dreams, he imagines his apartment clean. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if they just didn't remember, if that's just a continuity mess up
that they messed it up, that it was they didn't remember they had it messy already.
Yeah, but so he falls asleep. He gets the singing telegram first that shows up, a collect singing telegram from his wife that shows up for the alimony, just, reminding us why he's so grumpy in the first place. And then, we're going to get the first of what happens in every single one of our episodes. The character falls asleep and gets Marley. Felix is all of the ghosts.
Yeah, just like in Sanford and Son, the what's his name, Lamar or whatever, Lamont is all of the ghosts.
Yeah, so this is going to be Felix on TV. We also get, tracking this trope, our main character wearing an old-timey nightcap.
Yes.
Right? We have Oscar.
That looks almost like a Santa hat.
Yeah. Oscar always famously wears his Yankees cap, usually turned around backwards. And so, as part of the dream, he's slipped into this old-timey getup. We should also mention this is the first time on the podcast that we're covering an episode that I'm pretty sure is impossible for the viewers to watch. We had to order a DVD off of eBay because this is completely unavailable in any way, shape, or form on streaming that we could find. But a benefit of that is we got a 2-minute audio introduction by Gary Marshall when we started the episode. So there's just a freeze frame of the menu screen or whatever, and Gary Marshall going, "Oh yeah, on this one, we had special effects. We had fog. We had lights. We had,
he just
trick
said,
photography."
He said, he was like, it was the only episode we got to use special effects. Fog.
Yeah.
And it just like fog, period. And that was so funny. And then he also said that it was the only Christmas episode they did.
Okay. Well, sure enough, we get first it's Felix on the TV, which I could imagine in 1970, like, oh, here's our funny modern version of it. And then we get them sort of walking through this foggy void. And Felix says, "Oh, imagine what this is doing to my sinuses," right? Very much hand in glove. You're doing a sitcom version of A Christmas Carol. This is the kind of stuff you do. The fog is bothering my sinuses.
And he's like, "Cut the fog." And then it all kind of dissipates, which is very funny.
What almost all of these do is in some form condense the structure of the Christmas Carol. Right.
Because usually, so basically, most of our people don't get 4 ghosts.
Exactly. It's supposed to be Jacob Marley, then Ghosts of Christmas, past, present, and yet to come.
Right.
And a lot of time we get at least some sort of overlap, if not just a straight up omission of one of them.
Like Marley and past tend to get kind of folded in together.
Which I'm pretty sure is what happens here.
Yeah.
And unless anybody gets the DVD, no one can fact check it. So I'm going to say Marley takes him to his days as a schoolboy. And this was funny. Oscar dressed in the sort of old-timey, like short pants and, like the old-timey schoolboy outfit.
Yes, but wait. Before you go to there, we have to note the thing that happens in every one of our episodes, which is the first ghost that takes our Scrooge character somewhere tends to say, "Follow me, come with me, take my hand, and walk this way."
Yeah.
Right? And every one of our Scrooge characters copies the way that the character walks, and we get a laugh moment.
That was a law between 1914 and 1975. If a character in a movie said "walk this way," the funny character had to walk in the same manner as that person.
But even if they don't say "walk this way," even if they just say "come with me" or "follow me," so you get Jack Klugman, he puts his hands up like elbows at his waist and hands kind of flopped over, and he walks behind Tony Randall in this like prance that Tony Randall is doing as the ghost. And they kind of tiptoe prance out the door and into this big foggy area. And that was the first time it happened, and I will tell you what all the rest of them look like because it happened in every single episode all the way up to 1992.
That's getting to the heart of why they do this in the first place. This is one of those episodes, whether it's, I Love Lucy or Star Trek or whatever, we got to get the characters in wacky outfits into a whole different situation. And yes, they're going to
make them funny walk.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yes, we get Oscar dressed as an 18th century schoolboy in the past moment.
That's right. He's wearing like jodhpurs, right?
Yes, but
not jodhpur. He's wearing short pants.
Yeah, exactly. This like old timey short pants. He might even have like a little wig on or something.
Yep, he did. He did have a little like page boy wig on. Yeah.
I didn't catch, as you said, it's so condensed. I didn't even really catch what the like lesson of this part was or what like upset him. It's so fast, but they get
he wasn't going to get, he was reading his letter to Santa that was like a complaint letter. Mm-hmm. Santa, all I asked for this year was this thing, and my parents said no, and you didn't bring it to me, so you're like, I'm so mad at you, and he wasn't like, I don't believe in you and you don't exist, but he was basically like, 0 stars, you suck, Santa.
Then we should say this is the part in the actual story that, that George C. Scott movie that I loved so much. These are always the parts that I kind of spaced out and thought were boring, and I'd be kind of like, curious to watch it now.
What it was like in the past?
Because, in the real story...
That's the happy one.
Well,
right?
No, not really. All of the ghosts have sort of multiple destinations.
Yeah.
And so you see his father like abandoning him at school, kind of like that movie, The Holdovers. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then you see, it's like a handful of scenes where he's starting to contemplate why he is unhappy and why maybe he had experiences that made him not like Christmas. And then you see him and his fiance and him being kind of a dick to her.
Yeah.
And so like you just, again, all the things that as a kid I was kind of not really interested in, but you see the beginnings of him seeing his own...
Becoming cynical and like his origin story.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's like kind of, but not really what we're going to get in a lot of these episodes.
Because they don't have time for the ghosts to go to, if you're going to have 3 ghosts or all 4 ghosts, they can't go to multiple locations. So every ghost just gets to show you one quick thing.
Yeah, if that.
Right.
Yeah. Also, the ghost of Christmas Past is usually a woman in most representations. And I feel like none of these episodes take that.
Belvedere did. They did Santa Lucia.
Yeah, because they do the family. Yeah. But anyway, so then they go to Christmas Present. And this is where they sink their teeth into it a little bit more because we get the friends. We get Al as Tiny Tim. Or not Al, sorry, Murray.
Yes.
Played by the guy who is Al in Happy Days is Tiny Tim. And Felix now in like, octuple casting is also Bob Cratchit, right? Like,
yes,
we get the whole scene with the other friends as the family. I found this weird. Like, they've established that the reason why they're doing this Christmas Carol play is for the children of the community.
Yes.
That's why they're guilting Oscar into playing Ebenezer Scrooge in the first place. So why not show the children that don't get to see the play?
Because that would cost money and they don't already have them cast.
Yeah,
so they're going to use the people that they already have in their show. And so, I think there was the reason, now I'm kind of remembering the reason that Oscar has to kick Felix out is because that's what makes him the Bob Cratchit, because he's not getting his Christmas bonus and he's not getting, to see his family at Christmas. Instead, for Felix, it's just that he is having to go to a hotel and doesn't really have a place to be.
Yeah. And so we get the friends, like I said, I guess they're like rehearsing the play and it's going bad, or am I just confusing that with the other one?
It's going poorly. They, I guess they decided to pick one of them to be Scrooge, and it's awful, and they can't really rehearse, and so they're like, we might have to cancel. And then the Murray guy is like, but the children, if we don't do this for the children, because it's like the Police Benevolent Society or something that's putting it on for the kids.
Yeah, and then like pretty much just as fast we're whisked away to the Ghost of Christmas Future. This is one of the few episodes that actually adheres to the original thing where he's dead.
Yeah.
In a lot of these other Christmas episodes, they soften that detail. In this one, we get the funny thing of he's at a cemetery and it says, this messy grave is the resting place of Oscar Madison, because we imagine that he was buried by Felix, I guess.
Right.
And that's who wrote that, maybe. But yeah, it's the standard Christmas Carol ending of he's seeing his own grave. But this one felt really like shorthand.
Yeah.
Like just like before you even know what's happening, he's woken up.
Was there a date on it? Was it like soon? Is that why?
I don't remember.
Yeah, me
I remember
either.
him waking up and being all turned around and just being like, what the hell happened? Like, what exactly has he been convinced of? Like, because all of a sudden now it's like he likes living with Oscar. He recognizes that his friends need him. Like, this may be the flimsiest of the character redemptions in all of these stories, I feel like. And then he's turned around and I guess he decides that he'll play Scrooge after all.
Yeah.
The real resolution, or like finale anyway, of the show is back at home, just Felix and Oscar exchanging their presents.
Yeah.
You know, like that's to me the more like substantial thing, which is just Oscar giving Felix a gift certificate for a humidifier. So, you know, his sinuses.
He can help his sinuses.
Yeah. And this is also not the only one of our shows that ends with a Christmas handshake, right? Real sign of the times. In 1970, we can't show two guys
hugging.
Yeah.
What? No.
The two of them shake hands. But yeah, this one, like, it hits all those story beats, but like super fast to the point where it almost just feels like one continuous scene of Felix just being like, oh, and look, now we're in the present, and look, now we're in the future, and oh, hey,
I've got chains, I've got candles, I've got a shroud.
Yeah. And so like it's fun, like all the little comedy beats work and everything, seeing, you know, Al from Happy Days as Tiny Tim and all that. Yeah. But it doesn't have the most, it doesn't sink its teeth into the story.
Doesn't he say his line like 14 times? In the present scene, Al from Happy Days keeps saying, you know, and Merry Christmas and God bless us, everyone. And he says it like, you know, he keeps saying it at the wrong time and they're yelling at him. And he's like missing his cue and he's messing it up. And that was and then at the very end, when they're all together, that's like the last line of the episode. And he says it and the guys all roll their eyes at him.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. But so, yeah, we've got all of our tropes in place, I think. And yeah, let's move a little bit further into the 70s to Sanford and Son.
Season 5, Episode 12, Ebenezer, Sandford.
Yeah, we talked about Sanford and Son a while back on our Fear of Flying episode, right? So we're seeing a pattern here that Sanford Sr., right, Fred, is usually the stick in the mud. His unwillingness to do things or general lack of enthusiasm for things is going to be the catalyst for a lot of stories. And this is no different, right? Unsurprisingly, Sanford, the elder, is not super into Christmas.
Yes. So he's being, like you said, a stick in the mud. The inventory for the end of the year needs to get done. And Lamont, the junior, is running around trying to get all these things accomplished. And Fred is supposed to be doing the inventory back at the salvage yard. And he is not. He just keeps putting it off and is like, you know, basically is like, if I keep putting it off, then Lamont will have to do it. And then I won't have to do it. And I can just sit here and do nothing. And one of the reasons Lamont is so busy is that he's also like decorating the house and buying Christmas presents and everything else. And Fred's like, why are you doing that? Christmas is awful. Take that crap out of here.
Yeah, it's too expensive. It's pretty much, he's following the Scrooge logic of like the financial angle, you know, and just saying this is all too expensive, it's impractical, and so he's on both fronts. He doesn't want to do his work, and he doesn't want to do the Christmas stuff. We're going to get, you know, we mentioned the first time we talked about Sanford and Son, how it's a really bare bones show where it's just these two guys.
Yeah.
And, you know, we remarked that first time of like, that time it was really just those two.
Well, and most of the episodes are, every now and then they'll have, you know, like a family member or a friend or whatever kind of pop in.
This is what we have. We get a couple of those.
Well, and it's all of these people that have, you know, what will appear in a handful of episodes throughout the run of the series. Now we're in season 5, I think, of 6 of the show. So there's a bunch of them. So they can bring everybody back and have, you know, a bunch of people that are supposed to be like people in Fred's life. And
there's a big difference production wise between The Odd Couple and this. The Odd Couple is one of those old shows that we talk about that feels like kind of a hybrid between single cam and multicam. And you're wondering, is there an audience really there, or is that canned laughter? Whereas Sanford and Son feels like straight up, you can almost almost see that guy's leg from the front row, you know, on the set. Like it feels very live, raucous energy. And so these guest stars that show up, walk on the set.
They get entrance applause.
Yeah, they say, "Hey, you old bastard." Everybody just absolutely erupts with applause and laughter. And multiple guest stars that get that reaction. The first is this woman who shows up and is just, you know, it's a little bit like we talked about with Nell Carter, just that thing of like, let's just do like 17 insults each at each other. Her and Sandford just going back and forth.
It's it reminded me of Martin and
Pam.
Yeah, it reminded me of Martin and Pam.
Yeah.
Because and I think that's who this is. I think this is his wife's, like his, I don't know, ex-wife, dead wife's sister, because this is Aunt Esther.
That would make sense. That seems like the dynamic. At some point she says, "Your father's getting on my nerves." And he says, "I wasn't getting on any part of you." You know, he's just the same thing. "You're ugly" is basically the joke.
Exactly. "You're ugly and I can't look at you. I'd rather look anywhere." Later on, the ghost is like, "Listen." And he's like, "I'm glad you said listen and not look, because I don't want to look at her."
He likes that bit. But this lady, her only function in the episode really is just to further establish, like, here's another person that's kind of benevolent and likes Christmas, and he's gonna be mean to her, and it's just like another foil for his, for his energy.
She's brought over Christmas presents for each of them, and he's like, "Get out of here. Don't waste that. Wait, put that under a tree. Get that tree out of here." You know, he's all of the things that have to do with Christmas. He's not interested. So they all leave. Lamont goes out to do whatever he's trying to do and run errands and everything. And then this young man shows up, and Aunt Esther leaves.
Small.
That's right. Ronnie Small. I don't know if that sounds a little bit like Tiny Tim to you. Well, so Ronnie Small is trying to get $10 in the next 2 days so he can buy a present for his mom for Christmas.
Yeah, he's doing what Ellis and me used to do, my friend from the neighborhood. You go in door to door and say, "Hey, do you have any work, any random odd jobs you need done?"
Like
we'll
Beaver
do it for
and
some
his
money.
friend.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Hey, you know, I need $10 in the next 2 days. Do you have a job for me? I'll do anything." Fred's like, "Actually, I do have a job for you." And so he puts him on the inventory, but then he also is like, "And you have to paint the house, and you have to fix the fence."
He's basically a general laborer for like all of his...
For $10 is what he's going to give him.
Yeah, over 2 days. This is 1974 or something.
Yeah, but still, it's way too much labor for the little he's giving him. So then Lamont shows up with his friend.
Yes, another guy who gets a big applause break. Yeah. He's just another young man, some friend of Lamont's, I guess.
Yeah, and I got the impression that he maybe he's like a cousin. Like for a second there, I thought he might have been Aunt Esther's kid, but they don't have the same last name, and so, but he was invited to like the little family Christmas party. So I don't know. I haven't watched enough Sanford and Son to know the way everybody is actually connected. Yeah, we get jokes from Fred about like, "Oh, I don't want a present from you. It's so hot it'll set the Christmas tree on fire." He's like a nerd. He says he's like a nerd. Yeah, we get a little bit of that sort of criminality stereotype that doesn't sit so well in modern times. You don't know if that's specific to this character, if that's just what Fred likes to, say about all young people. But so he's going to come and they see this young kid, Rodney Small, doing all this work. They're like, "Who is he? Why, how did you hire him or whatever?" And when Fred tells them, "Yeah, I'm giving him $10 for 2 days," Lamont goes, "Pop, $10 is nothing." And Fred goes, "It's nothing to you, Mr. Rockefeller," trying to justify it. And so I guess, all of this just more and more, we're just establishing the Scrooge thing. Yeah. And what's nice about this one, where the Odd Couple didn't do a lot of the establishing of the Scrooge, they've spent more time on the ghosts. Right. This one really kind of lives in 2 acts, where it's like they have a whole first half of the episode of setting up all of the ways that Fred is a Scrooge, and then they go into the ghosts. It's because this one doesn't have the putting on a play angle. Yes, and I think it might be the only one. And that's to its advantage for sure.
Sure. I don't know why they feel the need to have it be like, oh, we're going to be putting on a show of A Christmas Carol and also living A Christmas Carol.
Also A Christmas Carol's happening to one of our characters. Yeah.
But so, that frees them up to, just do more with the he's a Scrooge angle. And so eventually we get to the inevitable part that all of these episodes have where he falls asleep. This one, he falls asleep like he has been stabbed with a syringe of Thorazine or something. Like he is just out.
He's out. He's tired. He's cranky. And then we get Lamont showing up in chains and what looks like the inside of a cassette tape just hanging off of him.
He quotes the Dickens dialogue directly. He says this whole...
but before that, we get that funny moment where he's like, Dad, you're like, do you remember that story you used to read me about the guy who gets visited by the ghosts? And he's like, what the Dickens are you talking about? And he's like, so you do remember. That was a fun moment. That's right before he falls asleep.
Right, and then he's just out. Lamont gets a huge reaction as Marley. Audience
Marley / Ghost of Past.
Again, I feel like if we were doing it, based on the story, only Marley's got the chains. Right. And so he shows up, initially in the Marley getup, and everyone reacts. And he says the whole like, I am all things at once. Like he gives this soliloquy.
Come with me.
And then again, we sort of transition right into the Spirit of Christmas Past thing, and we have young Fred, like a child this time. We don't have the adult actor in short pants.
It's a kid doing Fred, but he's got the limp that Fred has. Like he still walks like him now, where he sort of like drags his leg, which was very funny.
And so we get this scene with him and his mom.
Where you've got Red Fox being like, it's my mommy, but like old Red Fox, like actual Red Fox being like, oh, mommy, it's my mommy. You brought me to see my mommy. He says mommy like 17 times in this, and it's just always weird for me to hear a grown man say the word mommy. I'm always like, stop.
He goes, it's all about she sent him out for windshield wipers.
No, she sent him out for bread.
Okay, but he says that he doesn't have any change.
Yes, she's like, where's my change?
Windshield wipers.
He bought broken, salvage windshield wipers.
They're junk dealers. That's their thing in the show.
But so this is him as like a little kid saying, and he says to his mom, the future is junk, Mom. One day I'm going to sell these windshield wipers and buy new windshield wipers for you.
So he tells his mom that he doesn't have any change because he spent it all on windshield wipers. And then adult Fred says to the ghost, I was lying. I did buy windshield wipers, but I also bought candy.
And he says, Mommy, I'm sorry I couldn't buy you a present because I spent the change on the windshield wipers. And she's like, that's okay, baby. I'm glad you have a dream or whatever. And then Fred, the elder, the older man is crying because he's like, I lied. I could have bought my mom a present, but I bought candy instead. I'm so bad. Get me out of here.
This one is another, Lamont is going to be all of the spirits, right? So now he's the spirit of Christmas present, and he takes him to the Christmas party that is happening in his absence somewhere, right? All of the friends.
Before we go to Christmas present, I promised I would tell you the walk that is done, right? So the walk happens with Marley / Past, and he says about 14 times, come with me, follow me. And so then he turns and starts walking, and Fred kind of stops for a second, and like you see him thinking about it, and then he starts gliding in the same way that the Lamont character is gliding. This one wasn't as, tiptoey, prancy as the Jack Klugman version. Red Fox is just kind of, he sort of even turns his face to the audience that is on the other side of the camera. You can see he's playing to them, and he kind of gives a little half smile, and then he starts doing the slidey, glidey walk.
And this is all different ways of approximating in the story. They fly.
Yes.
It's the
ghost says, come with me, as long as you're touching me, you can fly like me. And that's something that almost all screen adaptations would sort of skip or find some clever way of substituting until that Robert Zemeckis version with Jim Carrey in the early 2000s, where they just like, that was the whole movie, was them just like flying around doing these crazy, you know, like 3D flying things because they could finally do it. So yeah, they get to Christmas Present and they're at the party, and Fred hasn't been invited because he doesn't have the Christmas spirit. Bubba, I've got a lot of notes about Bubba, that they're being nice about him even though he's been mean to Bubba.
Right. So Bubba is like Red's good friend, and he's another one of these guys that has guest starred a bunch, and he's just, you know, he's like one of the friends that people know in the show. And yeah, even though they're good friends, Fred is very mean to him and calls him, you know, ignorant and dim-witted and all of these names. And Bubba goes, well, at least he doesn't say anything false, you know, like at least he always tells the truth. So they end up, they're at this Christmas party that Lamont and Fred haven't been invited to. Well, Lamont was invited, but he knew, Aunt Esther says, I knew he wouldn't come because he wouldn't leave his dad home alone. And I never invite Fred because I don't want him to yell at me because I know he'll never come. And Fred's like, the one who's watching is like, I would have come. I would have gone. I don't know what she's saying, you know, getting all defensive. And so then, you know, that's when we have the thing where he's like, listen instead of look. And he makes the joke about, I would never want to look anyway. And so, yeah, they decide to toast to Fred, even though he's a grouch and mean to them. They're still going to make their whole party about him.
Right. And that's the part that is taken from the original Christmas Carol. This idea that in the present day, he gets to go to the Cratchit house.
Right.
And see that they basically
pray for him, even though he's such a dick.
Yeah, they're like, well, like, even though he won't give us time off for Christmas and he pays us like crap and he's a miserable person in general, what little we do have, we owe to him because he's our employer. And he sees how they have gratitude to him, even though he's so horrible. And that's, you know, one of the things that turns him around. It's also funny that even though they've gone to such lengths to introduce this Rodney Small character to us, Bubba is sort of Tiny Tim.
Yeah, in this
he's
situation.
the one that really pulls on your heartstrings.
For sure.
and then again, you know, we're just immediately whisked off to the spirit of Christmas yet to come. We get the joke where Red goes, who are you, the spirit of Liberace? Because this version
He's
of it...
wearing a spacesuit.
Yeah, it's basically like a sequined spacesuit. Yeah. It is not the dark death shroud that we tend to associate with the final spirit. It is this wacky, like Moonraker for the disco.
He even is holding like the astronaut helmet.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you got to think it's the 70s, right? Like, so if it's the ghost of the future, like, hey, the future is space travel.
So there you go.
Yeah. It's also funny how this is kind of like an Inception situation, because he's actually, the way this is represented is like he's having dreams inside of his dreams.
Yes.
Like he wakes up. And the next ghost is there waiting for him.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, okay, next layer of your dream. And so this is the one that started me going like, guys, you can't soften the hard edges here. The Christmas yet to come scene is just Fred in like a little black box apartment by himself.
Right.
And so
in his chair sleeping.
Yeah. His eternal damnation is just that he's lonely.
He's alone. Right.
Yeah.
And so basically what it's saying though is that Lamont has left him.
Yeah.
Right. That he gets so tired of his shit that he puts up with all the time that he is done. And now he is well and truly alone because he's pushed everyone away. He is in a precarious situation in his life right now where he is the curmudgeon and he's kind of mean to everybody, but they're still around and putting up with it and loving him. But that's not going to last much longer.
Yeah. And so, like we're saying, it obviously is very much simplifying or just straight up like altering
the beats of the Christmas Carol story, but it's getting the gist of it right. That, I lied to my mom and I shouldn't have done that, and also I was interested in car parts at a young age. And then, I have all these people in my life that are nice to me, even though I kind of don't deserve it. And so, at the end of the day, it's basically telling the same story.
Yeah.
And so he wakes up and, kind of like the little kid, none of these do the, what day is it, my boy? Go fetch the local ham or whatever. But we sort of have Rodney Small, kind of in that function, because he's the first one that Red encounters when he wakes up, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just here for my $10." And Red's like, "I'll give you 20. That's the Christmas spirit."
That's right. And doesn't make him do the second day of work and sends him off. We find out in the next scene that not only does he let him off of the last day, but he also gives him all of these presents for his mom and his dad.
Yes, who are named Bob.
Yes. So he doesn't have to go shopping. He can just give them these presents for them.
The final scene is this kid's parents stopping by, and they've got all of Lamont's clothes on them. That's the joke. They've got a tie with a big L on it and all these things. And, Lamont's
cufflinks
going,
that say LS and a handkerchief that says LS. Because, Lamont comes in and is like, "Dad, what turned you around?" And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've always liked Christmas, yours." And he's like, "But you're not going to get your presents until your birthday. Sorry, you got to wait." And then the family comes in and they have all of these presents that say LS, like Lamont Sanders. But Fred has told them that it's his motto for life, which is love
somebody.
Love somebody.
First, it's just the L on the tie, and he goes, "Oh, well, Fred explained the L is for love." And then when they're like, "Well, what about the cufflinks that say LS?" And he goes, "Oh, that's his motto, love somebody." And so we get very similar to the Odd Couple ending. The final beat is the two main characters, Fred and Lamont, by themselves. I don't think they exchange presents, but we get the Christmas handshake.
Yep.
And Lamont goes, "Dad, love somebody."
Yeah.
And they shake hands for Christmas. And all the same subtropes alive and well.
I'm going to turn to you on Christmas morning and be like, "Jay, Merry Christmas."
Yeah.
And just put her there.
I will passionately return
Shake my hand.
that Christmas handshake. All right, let's move on to Mr. Belvedere.
Season 6, Episode 11, A Happy Guy's Christmas.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty clear stance here at the Sitcom Study. If you're talking about 80s sitcoms, about families with man that is living with them to help with the kids and other things around the house, there's a very clear hierarchy. Charles in charge is king of the hill with, eons below him before you get to who's the boss. And then way below that is Belvedere. Right.
So, and look, this is, the second time we've watched Belvedere?
We only talked about Mr. Belvedere on our game shows episode.
Yeah. So, Belvedere was a show that as a kid, I loved.
Yeah.
The nastiness and the wackiness of it, I think I really found farcical and fun, and I enjoyed the show as a kid. And both times now that we've watched it for the podcast and the few other times that we've watched it just because, we like these kind of shows, I have been so disappointed. Mr. Belvedere as a show sucks.
Yeah, it's another one of these
it
small
makes me
wonder
so unhappy.
Where the family is every one of them is the weak link. I hate to be mean about it, but every one of them is oh, I guess they don't have much charisma. Maybe the next
no, not that one either.
The dad is 80 years old.
So, and look, the dad is a sportscaster. That's what he's known for in real life.
He's the best of them, though.
Exactly.
He's at least got that. He reminds me.
His name's Bob Euchre. He's a sportscaster.
He's got that. He reminds me a little bit of Robert Loggia, the actor. He's got that. All right, Belvedere, put her there. Kind of old-timey macho something.
But this is, oh gosh, it's just so bad. Anyway, so this one really, it sort of felt like it shot out of a gun. Like it just, more than any of the others, just assumed that we understood all of this that was going on. They are decorating for Christmas, and the dad is like wrapped up in Christmas
tangled
lights.
Up. So far, so good.
Right,
Classic
and
sitcom
then
stuff.
ding dong, this guy's at the door,
Yes.
and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm so and so. Remember me from the Happy Guys? We're gonna put on a Christmas Carol, and all of you have to come be in it." And I was like, what the fuck? Who is this guy?
Right. Let's just take a breath here. I was hoping you would have some knowledge of this.
Well, I looked it up, so I do now.
Okay. What is the Happy Guys Society?
The Happy Guys of Philadelphia have been in every season since season 3. We're now in season 6. Is
this a real thing?
No, they're just, it's like a little group.
Similar to a real thing?
Is
it like the Friars Club kind of thing?
No, it is a barbershop quartet kind of silly singing group, but not good harmonies like a real barbershop quartet. It is a group of 4 or 5 guys that sometimes the dad is a member of throughout the seasons, and it's just a wacky premise that they bring up over and over again. The Happy Guys of Philadelphia.
Right. It's a club that he's in, and they are
and out of.
Right, but they are the source of some of the story.
Exactly. Okay. So that's why it was like apropos of nothing. Like, ding dong, remember me? I'm, Carl or whatever his name is.
But this is sort of addressing what I was saying before, that where I grew up, there was these Christmas plays just didn't exist. Maybe they were in a church, and I just didn't know about it. So this is another secular person writing this, going, well, we need some sort of governing body to put on this play
so
let's
for
have
the
the Happy
kids
Guys
at the Unhappy Children's Home. That was what they're putting
also known as a hospital, I guess.
Right? So they're putting on, the Happy Guys are putting on this production as a fundraiser for the Unhappy Children's Home, and that's funny that you thought it was a hospital. I thought it was an orphanage. But so the main guy from the Happy Guys is coming over and saying, Owen's family, you've got to be in this.
Right.
We need you to come to the auditions. Well, he made it sound like we just need you to do this show.
Yeah.
And then he says, so be at auditions tomorrow at, whatever time.
I took it to be the kind of thing of like, we're probably going to need pretty much everyone we can get, but we're going to have auditions, and then we're going to decide you play this character, you play that character. And they don't have any agenda when they show up in terms of like, it's not like Felix knowing from the get-go, I want Oscar to play Scrooge. What's going to happen in this?
Well, hold on, though, because they do, while they're at the house.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They show up just going like, we want everyone to be involved. And then the conversation turns to like, now, who could play Scrooge?
Yeah, we don't have a Scrooge.
Yeah,
so.
who could embody that contempt and disdain? And then, Q Belvedere walks in for the first time in the episode complaining about something or going like, you're all blithering idiots.
Yeah, he's complaining that the fruitcakes he spent months making, the youngest kid Wesley has used as hockey pucks. And Wesley is take Ben Seaver from Growing Pains and turn his awfulness up by 7%.
Give him the haircut of David Faustino in Early Married with Children.
And then take the dickishness of Michael J. Fox as Alex P. Keaton with none of the charm. Just the dickishness.
I wouldn't even saying Michael J. Fox in the same sentence as this kid
he has this like capitalist misogyny baked into him.
Greedy and I'm selfish.
Yes, exactly. And it's all about me, and like none of you people matter. And so that's what this character is. So he, is getting yelled at for using the fruitcakes as hockey pucks, and Mr. Belvedere says, "There's no Christmas for naughty little boys." Right. And so they're like,
we've got our Scrooge.
There's our Scrooge.
Now everything we just said is before the theme sequence, right? That is the cold open.
That's why I said this feels like it's been shot out of a gun. I'm like, what is happening?
Yes.
Did we miss the beginning of this episode?
Yes.
And then it was, okay, now we're going to see the pictures of Belvedere on his life before the,
this was all a funny way of showing us like Belvedere, it's the role he was born to play. He's going to be Scrooge. in this production. And so, yeah, after the theme sequence, we get our second audition segment. And this one, it almost has the vibe of like the town hall meetings in Parks and Rec, with the people in charge, or like
at
behind
Schitt's
a panel.
Creek when they're, the Jazz-a-Gals rehearsal in the city hall.
And so we get, interestingly, again, no, they're not going to cast a woman to be the ghost of Christmas Past. They're going to have the women auditioning. One of them wants to be Scrooge's sister, and one of them wants to be Mrs. Cratchit.
Right. She is basically dismissed after reading for Bob Cratchit's wife. And she's like, so did I get Bob Cratchit's wife? And he's like, we'll let you know. And she's like, I'm your wife. What do you mean we'll let you know? And he's kind of like, okay, we'll let you know. And like shoos her off. And then you have the most disgusting display. I almost wanted to turn off the episode. I was so just grossed out by what they did here. So the mom in Mr. Belvedere, right, Marsha Owens or whatever her name is, she comes out in a Jane Fonda workout leotard and tights and belt. This is like very sort of 80s Jane Fonda look for her workout videos. She walks in, prances up on the stage, and is like, oh my God, you guys, are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, we're going to sing a song. Yeah, that's my audition. I'm going to sing a song. And I'm like, you're 40. Are you fucking kidding me? I was like, I honestly was just like, this is gross. All of this is gross. And then the guy from the Happy Guys, she gets one word out in her audition. And he's like, you have the part. You're Scrooge's sister and fiance. You're double cast. You're amazing. Because she's hot. And she's like, really? Oh my God. I'm like, what precedent are you setting for your children? No wonder your children are gross. And her husband stands up and wolf whistles her. I was like, this is awful.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure it was the mom. Like, we had to watch this on a crappy YouTube recording because it's not on proper streaming. And yeah, I was more just like thrown by it.
I was like, what is happening? Like, if anything, the ditzy daughter who is doing a Sally Struthers voice, like through the whole thing, if anything, that should be her go-to move. But who is this show for?
Yeah, like I recognized that it was like the joke of like on Parks and Rec.
Right,
like
she's so hot, so she just gets the part.
Yeah, and so the aerobics thing was weird. I feel like it dawned on me later that this was the mom. I was like, oh, okay, so it's like this like dumb hot girl. They like her.
Yeah, but it wasn't a dumb hot girl. It's the mom on the show. So I was like, what is happening? And then throughout the episode, every time they come back to her, she's like, oh, why don't I do a song? And then she's doing Oklahoma and doing it like YMCA, like spelling the letters and still in the leotard, but like putting this song Oklahoma in Christmas, like what is even happening? And then at the end, even later when we get to the Christmas present, she's doing a song from 42nd Street, still in the leotard. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, no, I found it confusing throughout the whole thing, and I just took it again. It's like, okay, so the joke started as like there's this hot girl and they're all beguiled by her, and then it's like she's sort of representing how misguided the show is and how like it just gets more and more chaotic, and they're doing these like musical numbers apropos of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And so then you've got the oldest son is going to play Bob Cratchit. He's, fine. He's not being ridiculous. And then you've got the three other Happy guys trying to sing their Christmas carols, but they're singing them at the wrong time and they're not coming in on the right cue. And Mr. Belvedere is like knocking it out of the park as Scrooge, but the shit that's going on around him, like honestly, I agreed with Scrooge I was like, no, I would shut this production down. You all suck. Everyone is fired. Get out. Yeah. This is awful.
He basically handles it like the producer guy who came ashore in the Gilligan's Island thing. Yeah. He fires his whole, or I thought at first he was firing everybody, but it's more like he's just yelling at them and then he quits. He storms off the set.
What happens is he is cast as Scrooge and the guy who came over originally is the director. But then it becomes clear that he's not able to direct and the show is going off the rails and it's a mess. And so they're like, well, if you think you can do a better job, Belvedere, you direct. And so he's like, okay. So then he starts directing and things are going sort of better. But he, we're still seeing all of this nonsense.
Yes.
Like the mom says, oh, I have an idea for a song for my scene. And it's Oklahoma. And so he's like, no. And all of the nonsense keeps happening. And he's like, this is awful. I'm out of here. You all suck. I quit. And leaves the production. And truthfully, I was like, I agree. Yeah. Well, this is horrible.
I do have in my notes that Mr. Belvedere and you share a contempt for people pronouncing things badly, because one of the things that gets his goat
I laughed at that too. Somebody says Morrissey.
Yeah, Morrissey instead of morose. And Mr. Belvedere can't abide that. This is all true. And again, this all amounts to Mr. Belvedere storms off the set in frustration. He's mad at everybody for being bad
and obnoxious
at putting on A Christmas Carol. And this is going to lead to the old, let's fall asleep and wake up in an old-timey. Mr. Belvedere has his own old-timey sleeping cap, I think, in present day.
Yes, and sleep shirt. He wears a nightgown, like a big long sleep shirt to sleep in, and we get a joke when it is Christmas present and he's flying around over the town in our use of very 80s special effects.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I would have worn some long johns if I known we were going to fly. And then all of a sudden we hear a woman scream from the ground because he's flashed her in his nightshirt. And he goes, oh, and he tries to cover his junk.
Yeah, but first we get the dad. He's going to be Marley.
Yeah, this one we get all four ghosts.
Yeah, because we've got the family members to fill out the spirits. And so Marley, he's the dad's got chains, but also pots and pans. That's their fun, sitcom spin on it.
He says, and he's wearing a golf outfit, and he says, I built these chains link by link. Okay. Get it?
Yeah, I did not get that. I have in my notes, why is he wearing a bagpiper's hat?
Nope, so, golf outfit.
that's supposed to be a golf outfit. Okay, we definitely
bagpipes and golf come from Scotland, so that might be why you have those things connected in your mind.
We get the walk this way joke for sure.
We sure
have
do.
This time. I have that in my notes, that he says, walk this way. He walks that way.
And this is the only one where the ghost says, walk this way.
Yes.
The rest of them say, follow me or come with me, and then they just do the copying of the walk
this
anyway.
Way goes without saying. And they go to the Ellington School. This is where young Lynn Belvedere, that is famously his first name, he had his early education. And so we get him Bart Simpson style, writing on the chalkboard again and again.
That he will not throw food at his classmates. And then we have the teacher saying there is no Christmas for naughty little boys.
Yeah. And this, I feel like, is kind of a reverse of the original Dickens thing, because this has his dad coming.
His uncle, yeah.
Okay, his uncle, and bailing him out.
Yeah.
They make the joke. They go come with us. And little Belvedere goes, but what of my punishment? And he goes, we'll fax it. So that's how you know you're in the middle of the 80s. And and so he skips out on his, chalkboard punishment.
Yeah, he gets a reprieve with his fun uncle, and he wants to go with them. But the ghost of Christmas past, who is the mom now, and she's dressed up in the long white robe with the crown of candles on her head, like Santa Lucia, and that's more of a classic Dickens look, right?
Yeah, it's usually done as
an angelic woman.
So that's what she looks like, and that's that. And then he comes back, and now we have Ghost of Christmas or Spirit of Christmas Present, and it's the daughter who's doing the Sally Struthers voice, and she is an actual present and is on wires, and they are flying around and around.
Yeah, this is going to make the visual pun that she's the ghost of Christmas present and she's in a big giant box. And then the next show is going to say, I'm the ghost of Christmas presents. Get it? Christmas presents. But yeah, she takes him to the rehearsal, just like the Odd Couple, and he gets to see the play in chaos.
Yes. Again, we get another leotard song. This time they're singing We're in the Money, which fits a little bit better than Oklahoma, just because of Scrooge and money and whatnot, but it's still ridiculous and wrong.
My only real note about this part is that Wesley, the son, is dressed as a Foot Locker employee in these rehearsal things.
Well, he is dressed in like very kind of cool modern clothes. Like he has that, it's like the angular, when we were in middle school and the kids were like wearing and wearing like button down shirts, like they were so cool. That's what this kid's dressed like. He turns, he's Tiny Tim. He gives his crutch to Bob Cratchit, his older brother, and he moonwalks to the door. And then opens the door, and the happy guys come in and start singing a song, and
Yeah.
It's awful.
And then that whisks us right away to the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. We do have the death shroud thing, but this is, again, it's little Wesley out of his Foot Locker employee uniform, and now we don't get to see him, but we can tell, he's partially
short,
by process of elimination.
And all the other kids have been one,
Yeah, so he is doing the thing like the real Christmas Carol, being I guess he's not silent, he's just talking to him sort of like minimally.
Yeah. Do we get the other son being a ghost at any point? The older son?
I forgot about the older son.
Yeah, I don't think we get him as a ghost at any point.
Yeah.
But in this yet to come, in this future sequence, they all still live in the house. The parents are ancient, and it's Mr. Belvedere's 114th birthday.
Yes. So this to me
it says Happy New Year 2040.
Yeah. This is like almost fundamentally different than what the real ending of the story is meant to be.
Right.
I mean, I guess for him, it's supposed to be like this worst case scenario, but it's showing him
still with the Owenses after all these years.
But it's showing him a future where he's surrounded by people and alive, which is the opposite of the Christmas Carol thing, which is supposed to be you're going to end up, dead with nobody mourning you.
But he's surrounded by people that he hates, ostensibly.
But they're the only people he knows.
Well, but this is what's so weird, right? Because at the beginning of this series, like, he has a disdain for the father, and he feels like the kids need some structure. And so that's why he decides to stay. We're now 6 seasons later.
Yeah.
And he's miserable, hates all of the children.
Yeah.
They're worse than they were when he found them, although they all have sort of coalesced as a family, and the dad likes being involved with the family, which wasn't the case when he first arrived. So he's just like, I don't want to be here. I hate you all. Like, I don't want to be here. So why are you still there?
Yeah, that is, in 1986, like, that is what a sitcom is. Like, that's just like, that's what the jokes are going to be. Of course they hate each other.
Anyway, it's 1989, I think, at this point. But he's just like, he won't leave. He's stuck with these people that he hates. He's so miserable.
Yeah, that is just the crux of the humor, I think, at this time, is like people hating each other and living in the same house. Comedy gold.
That's his like worst case scenario, is that he's still in 2040, right? All these years later, 50 years later, is still stuck with the family. They're all there together. And the reason we find out is that Christmas Carol play went so poorly that the whole town went bankrupt, and everyone is poor in the whole town, and they all hate Mr. Belvedere, so he could never leave the house again, and that's why he's trapped there all these years later.
It's like Back to the Future 2. This is like the nightmare hellscape that happens with like the chain reaction of his Christmas
And the
Carol.
only one that's successful is a criminal, and that is the youngest son, Wesley, and the mom is like, oh, who's my little inside trader? I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
gross.
So again, like it's being true to the idea that like if he doesn't change his ways, bad things will happen.
Yes.
But besides that, it's not really getting at like what Scrooge's fate, is really meant to like the reason why it's meant to be so scary to him. But then, it's going to end like they all do, right? Wake up. Oh my God.
I can't let that happen. I'll go back and save the production because I don't want to be stuck with the Owenses for the next 50 years.
Yeah. Let me see. Oh, this at least the one thing that gets the thumbs up from me is Mr. Belvedere's stunt double doing cartwheels as he goes out of the living room. That was unexpected and very funny when he wakes up and he's in his, euphoric good mood.
Yes, we get a little bit of that, like you were saying. What day is it, my good son? Gold coins for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And so he does a cartwheel out of the living room into the kitchen. And I think we're supposed to assume he goes and saves the play and everything. We get the Mr. Belvedere's diary ending.
Yes, like we always do.
Yep. He explains that the play raised an unprecedented amount of money for the Happy Guys Foundation.
For the Unhappy Children's Home.
Yeah. And so that's it, right? I mean, this one, it gave us all the beats. I mean, the overlaps are, innumerable.
Yes, it was miserable. This was a miserable episode.
Right. Moving on to Golden Palace.
Yeah. From the one and only season, episode 12, it's beginning to look a lot less like Christmas.
Yeah, so we haven't covered Golden Palace yet. We've, of course, covered its mother show, Golden Girls, right? This is the...
And its other spin-off, Empty Nest.
Yes. This is the short-lived, I would say maybe a little bit infamous, kind of early 90s spin-off, where 3 of the 4 Golden Girls bought a hotel.
Yeah,
right?
They bought a hotel in Miami.
Let's buy a business. This is Archie's place, right?
Yes,
this,
exactly.
Standard sitcom
B.
maneuver.
Arthur has, her contract's up. She feels like everything, the girls have been put in every situation they possibly could. She wants to move on to other projects. The other women are like, we'll stick with this cash cow for a little while longer. Yeah. So we buy a hotel. We bring in Cheech Marin as the chef and Don Cheadle in his first role as the hotel manager.
Yes, I would not have thought when we started this lineup of, Mr. Belvedere, the Golden Girls, etc., that we were going to get Cheech Marin's redemption.
That's right.
Cheech
Marin doesn't like Chewy is his name in the show. He doesn't like Christmas because his dad owned a restaurant and made him dress up like their famous Christmas layer cake.
Yes.
And the hat that he had to wear was made of whipped cream and spoons. So as he walked around the restaurant, people could take bites out of his hat.
It also, Christmas is the day when he was drafted to Vietnam. He was divorced. Like they just throw it into the dialogue that like all of these bad things happened on Christmas. And so Cheech Marin, he's the cook. He doesn't like Christmas. Don Cheadle, he's like the sort of hotel manager. He's going to have his own B story where he has to be Santa, and Rose takes that super seriously and is like whipping him into shape.
Yeah, she's like, what do you mean? You can't be Santa with a flat stomach.
Yeah, so we get a great sort of like typical sitcom B story where every once in a while we check in with Rose and Don Cheadle's character, and she's like drilling him, doing some weird exercise on how to make him a better Santa.
Yeah, because she was like, have you had the classes?
Yeah. The main focus, though, for us is going to be, and this is a truly bizarre story in my opinion, this is not going to be, we're putting on a pageant of A Christmas Carol.
Nope.
This is going to be, our hotel is hosting a convention, a seminar being put on.
A convention of divorced folks who are sad about Christmas.
Who have experienced some sort of trauma that makes them hate Christmas. And so this like unlicensed therapist has set up this seminar where he's going to shield them from anything to do with Christmas for the whole weekend.
Right. So he comes in and he sees that there's decorations in the hotel. And he's like, well, those are coming down because the person I spoke to on the phone assured me that they wouldn't be there. In fact, her words were Christmas schmissmas.
And that person is Sophia.
That's right. And Sophia was getting a lot of accolades for being able to say Christmas schmissmas and keep her teeth
Now,
in.
let's just pause on this for a second. Like we mentioned, we've lost B. Arthur.
Yeah.
We've got the rest of them. We're seeing in the first scene that Sophia likes to say Christmas schmissmas because people are impressed by her verbal dexterity.
Yeah, she
but
can
also,
keep her dentures in when she says it.
Right, but also, like all of our characters, she is a Scrooge. She doesn't like Christmas as much. And
no, she just thinks it's fun to say.
so you don't think that she has any anti-Christmas sentiment?
Because I think the 2 times that they said, hey, what do you mean? And she was like, no, it's just good to say it because, look, I can keep my teeth in.
I took it to be that she authorized this seminar for the anti-Christmas thing because she didn't really like Christmas either.
See, I took it to be that she just was never paying attention, and just anytime someone says Christmas, she goes, Christmas, schmissmas. Like she's a little bit, kind of losing her marbles, and when she hears Christmas, she just says this.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm just saying that should have been the case because nothing against Cheech Marin.
No,
I would have rather seen Sophia's Scrooge-like journey.
Exactly. And I thought that's what this was going to be when she first said Christmas schmissmas.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be the bah humbug, but it turned out not to be because it turns out it's Chewie that needs the redemption.
Yeah, and so I guess maybe we need to take a step back and just accept that that's what this show is Don Cheadle and Cheech Marin, and it's funny, like nowadays I feel like Betty White is like, there is nobody whose star has shined brighter in the last 10 years. Like, she is comedy royalty.
And you can see a glimpse of this in the one moment when they cut back to her after the convention comes in and they have to take down all the Christmas things. And then she walks in this full elf outfit.
Yeah.
And she does this like pose where she's leaning back and she's doing a little voice like, I'm Santa's elf. And it is the cutest thing ever. She is all in. And I was like, that's the kind of stuff that she didn't get to do as Rose all these years because it's been so, she's the, daffy one and whatever. And in this show, Rose gets to get a little more, she gets to stretch a little more. Rose becomes a bigger, broader character because you don't have the B. Arthur of it all.
Yeah. And I couldn't even necessarily comment on like how this characterization is different. I just think that like celebrity wise and like bankability wise, it's funny to consider that maybe in, 1990 or whenever this was happening, they were kind of like, like we need to hedge our bets a little. Like, of course people like the Golden Girls, but come on, Cheech Marin, that's what's going to really get people excited,
Well,
and
they were also kind of angling, I think, for a different audience, right? Like they wanted their same audience. So NBC only greenlit them for 13 episodes. And the producers were like, we want a full season, and took this series to CBS. So, and the reason NBC only gave them 13 episodes was because NBC wanted a younger audience and they didn't feel like a continuation of Golden Girls was going to do that. CBS, as we know, is where all the old people watch TV. So they were like, come on over. And they put this show with Major Dad, Designing Women, and Bob.
Oh, the Newhart one.
The third Bob Newhart sitcom
so the
where he's a
combined
comedic
age
audience.
of the leading actors is like 750.
Exactly. And then all of them got canceled at the end of the season.
So I guess what I'm saying is that it seems weird now because like we love these Golden Girls so much.
Yeah.
But like I think at the time you're seeing like, Don Cheadle and Cheech Marin are the main focuses of both of these A and B stories. And so Cheech Marin is going to be our Scrooge.
Yep.
And so he gets that journey. This one is going to actually skip Marley entirely.
Yep.
We're going to have
Cheech Marin just kind of go to bed and then wake up with Sophia as the ghost of Christmas past. And this is where this one has, again, no flying, but a lot of, we're just going to do like the superimpose the image over itself.
Yeah.
So both of them, even the one that's not a ghost, are going to be like translucent.
Yes. And we see the restaurant that he tells us about, right? The restaurant.
Yes, his Papa's Kitchen. Mm-hmm. They make the joke because they're just using the same set as their kitchen.
Right.
And so, Cheech
They're
Marin
like,
goes
it looks like an awful lot like our hotel.
Yeah. He goes like, this isn't my dad's kitchen. And she's like, well, look, it's got a stove and a sink, so work with me.
Yep. And so we see a young actor playing young Cheech Marin in the layer cake costume.
And it's a recurring thing where whoever adult Cheech Marin is talking to, right? Because first it's Rose. And so he goes, do you know what it's like to have your head filled with whipped cream? And Rose goes, uh-huh.
Yes.
I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, that's just it, is I think like he just sees this thing playing out of like his dad making him do this. And then again, we should also say like the other ones, even though we don't have a pageant, there's a lot of preamble in this because this is the only one of these 4 episodes that has a full-on B story. I feel like that has nothing to do with the Christmas Carol thing. So they're packing all of this into the last like 8 minutes, I feel like, of the episode.
And so we just kind of get these quick little glimpses of the things, and that's why it's just a sight gag and not a whole big scene.
Yeah.
And then we go to the Christmas present, and
that's
it's Blanche, right?
As the presents,
Yeah.
And that's when he goes, do you know what it's like to be covered in whipped cream on Christmas? And she goes, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But what was the...
Because they see the Golden Girls present day and Don Cheadle like sipping eggnog outside like they're hobos, like freezing in the cold.
Oh, that's right. But that's because something happened with the convention, right? And so they have to celebrate outside so they don't upset their guests. That's why they're outside. So
that's where we get this show's version of the Cratchit family Christmas, basically, is just the, for, I guess it's what the remaining Golden Gals and Don Cheadle.
Yes.
All just like with their little mittens and stuff.
Yes, they've got their cocoa and they're outside and they're freezing, and it's because they can't celebrate Christmas inside because they've agreed, to this. And Chewie is excited to have this convention be there because he wants to have a Christmas that's no Christmas.
Oh, yes.
So he's all on board for this. And so these 2 things are kind of coming together here to show him that supporting this convention is actually bad.
Yeah, exactly. And then that continues in the Ghost of Christmas Future segment. That's Sophia, and she shows him the future where the hotel is in shambles. It's still open, but it's like, it looks like it's, been like bombed.
Yeah.
And they say the new owner won't allow Christmas. And then Chewie strolls in and he's the new owner and he hates Christmas. And it's just like dystopian, basically.
Right. Except he's all Superfly and like owns a hotel and has lots of money. So I don't know how this would make him sad. Yeah.
I have, again, it kind of misses the point of the story. Sophia the ghost says, change your ways, change the future. But yeah, like it's similar to, I guess, all of these where it's just sort of like, you see, you did something bad in the past, present, and future. And so like you're being mean to people.
Right.
It's
and your
not,
friends are sad.
Yeah. But it's definitely not doing the thing where he's dead.
Right.
So,
or really learning a lesson. But okay.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he wakes up and he finds the Golden Girls and Don Cheadle frozen outside, and we find that was a fake out.
No, they're frozen in the freezer. He gets up and he's like, oh, I should go check the freezer. And they're all inside frozen, right?
I have that as a question. I didn't know if it was a big freezer or just like the outside
area in Miami?
Yeah.
Well, but they were cold the night before. I guess that was part of his dream.
Yeah.
But this is part of his dream too, so I don't know.
Yeah, it was like a fake out wake up,
Yes.
and they're all frozen, but then we find out that's fake, and he wakes up again, and he's like, my friends are okay, that's wonderful, I want to celebrate Christmas, and he goes running into the convention, and he's like, Merry Christmas, everyone!
Yeah, and then Cheech Marin whips out like a pretty good singing voice. Like he very sincerely, because everyone kind of comes in. I feel like it all kind of comes to a head. Like, no, what are you doing? Everybody hates Christmas. And then like the seminar people kind of come around to it,
and they have good voices.
Yeah, well that's the joke, is that someone says like, let's sing a Christmas carol,
and they're all like, they're a choir, you know.
Yeah,
and so then you got like 8-part harmony to back
Marin
up
goes
Chewie.
like, well, okay, and then he very sincerely starts going like, oh come all ye fair, and then the people start singing in harmony. Yeah, and then Sophia looks like directly into the camera and goes, Merry Christmas, Schmissmas to all, and to all a good night. And I feel like similar to how the Mary Tyler Moore thing did it, maybe on the one we covered last year, where it's like, now we're going to take this opportunity.
2 Betty White Christmas episodes.
That's true. We're going to take this opportunity to like drop the fiction and just address you, the audience, and say, season's greetings from us.
From all of us here at the Golden Palace.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's it. Cheech Marin has gone through the journey like the rest of them. So what do we think? This is one with obviously a ton of heavy overlap.
Yeah.
And this is really a small sampling of the sitcom episodes that do the same exact story. What are our favorites? What do we think?
The 70s sitcoms take it for me. I really, I enjoyed The Odd Couple. I liked all the little shout outs they were giving to the original script. I appreciated that in so many ways, had a lot of fun with that. It was the one that felt, even though it was rushed, like we were talking about, because it also had the play that they were doing, it still, it made the most sense to me. Like Oscar being Scrooge just worked. And I appreciated that one a lot.
Yeah, these were all pretty, I'm not going to say they were all the same, because I agree that Belvedere was pretty annoying. But to be honest, they were all fun for the same reason, that this Christmas Carol thing, like I said at the beginning, I've always been a sucker for it, and it's fun to see it in all these different instantiations. But for the same reason, they all kind of bugged me in the way that they didn't, and look, I don't want to be a total nerd and say like they should have stuck closer to the original source material, but it's like
I think it's hard in the time frame though.
But that's the thing, is I think they all of the ones that do the pageant thing are shooting themselves in the foot by doing
Sanford and Son was the strongest because they could do it
That's
way.
why I think Sanford and Son is kind of the best to me. And also, for all the reasons we talked about the first time we did Sanford and Son, we love it. We love that simplicity of the story.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of a modern sitcom with those little cutaway jokes. This is going to be we settle into nice long scenes.
And we have 3 sets and it's like a static shot on every set.
Yeah. And so much of the comedy is just Red Fox and just letting him do his thing and have fun with it. So it's got all of that going for it. And yes, because it's not bogged down with this, we're directing a play and you need to be Scrooge and let's have an audition sequence and all of these things, that it just gets to do that basic Christmas Carol structure, it just makes it so much more simpler and lets them have more fun with it. And yeah, the rest of them are fun, but it did annoy me the way that they spend so much time on these other story things, and that they end up in these scenarios where like the future is that I'm a rich guy and the staff doesn't like me or something. It's like, no, A Christmas Carol is about a guy that ends up looking at his own grave that people are like spitting on and going like, oh my God, nobody, will remember me. And like, I have no significance in the world despite my wealth, and like
all that I've worked for, thinking that it was something is actually nothing.
Yeah, everything that I think is important isn't, and I'm like missing the point of life.
Yeah,
and
life is for living, not for legacy.
Yeah, and to be fair, like all of these stories get that a little bit. Like I wish that they had a little more fun with maybe some of those specifics of the Christmas Carol thing, instead of always just being like, yeah, 3 ghosts, we got it, 3 ghosts, past, present, future, yeah, and kind of like doing whatever the hell they want. All right, so much for the Christmas carols. What are we talking about next week?
Well, next week and for the next couple of weeks, we are going to take a much-needed break for the holidays, so we will see you back here with new episodes on January 15th.
Yep, we'll see you in a few weeks, and until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.